Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke stood before a room full of reporters as chairman for the last time. This was yesterday. He'll pass the baton to incoming chair Janet Yellen in January. Now, the press conference was significant in other ways as the Fed announced a reduction in their stimulus program known as quantitative easing and revised their inflation and unemployment targets as they relate to interest rates. On top of all of that, the U.S. Senate approved a budget that will carry us well into 2015. Joe Krier, president of Krier Wealth Management, is here to help us make sense of it all. First of all, when you balance the good and the bad news, there was more good than bad this time.
I think there was, and people weren't sure exactly what was going to come out of this Federal Reserve meeting. They knew it was Ben Bernanke's last shot at, maybe changing policy a little bit, and he leaned very much towards the accommodative side, meaning the feds are going to help the economy along a lot more than people expected they would.
Let's talk about the quantitative easing. The news could have been worse than it was.
Oh, definitely. And, quantitative easing, this is actually the third version of it, or QE3 as we call it. They're pumping about $80 billion into the economy, sort of indirectly by buying bonds off the open market. And they know that they were going to taper this, as they say, and stop doing that. Helicopter Ben, as they call him, throwing dollars over the U.S. that trickle down and help everybody. They're cutting back on those dollars a little bit, but not as much as everybody thought they would.
Let's talk about the Fed's economic targets. In particular, inflation is number one.
Yeah, and I mean, the Fed was formed to control inflation and maintain employment. And really, there are two main targets here as far as keeping interest rates low. They wanted to keep them low until inflation got above 2% and unemployment got below 6.5%. Well, yesterday, what Bernanke said was those aren't fixed targets. It doesn't mean that as soon as we get there, we change everything and start raising interest rates. He sort of took that off the table and he said, okay, if we get to our inflation target and unemployment goes down below 6.5, we're going to keep interest rates low, maybe indefinitely, who knows? And so, the economy and the markets kind of had their cake and ate it too yesterday.
So that kind of takes care of the forecast for 2014. Nothing drastic there, nothing dramatic.
Right, and as far as the economy goes, they're looking for continued slow economic recovery, sort of like we saw this year. It's not recovering as fast as anyone would hope. The Fed's best case scenario is that the economy cranks along and they can just get out of the way and let free markets do their own thing. They're nowhere near that. And Janet Yellen, the incoming Federal Reserve Chairman, she's going to have to grapple with this her entire term in office.
Let's talk about the Senate's budget vote. People on the surface say, good, we avoided a government shutdown. It looks like the Dems and the Republicans are getting along. But this is really like Penn and Teller. It's all an illusion because it's business as usual, and they're just saying, we're going to move a bunch of this stuff forward.
Yeah, and that's, there's two forms of business as usual here with the Senate. It's yell at each other and not do much, or get along and maybe do just a little bit, and this was the second one. They know that there's a lot going on here with consumer confidence, and there's still some big battles coming early in the year. They've got unemployment benefits that are set to expire January 1 for long-term unemployed, and then, of course, there's another round of debt ceiling. The good news is that the Republicans are sort of positioning for the upcoming elections, and the debt ceiling may not be such a drop-dead issue as it's been a couple of times in the last 2 years.
Time will tell. Joe Krier, thank you.
Good to see you, Bruce.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Thanks for being here.